Greetings Guzzlers, we're going to make some Gyoza wrappings, or wrappers, sorry, wrappings. They are wrappings, but we want to do it properly, so we're going to make them from scratch. So in here I've got 200 grams of plain flour, and in here I've got 120 grams of boiling water, and I'm just simply going to pour that in there. But because that's boiling water, I ain't going to put my hand in there, so I'm going to use a chopstick, because we've got to be authentic here, haven't we? And I'm just going to mix that in as well as I can do, and we're going to let it cool a little bit, and when it is cool enough that we can get our hands in there, we're sort of just going to knead it for about 4 minutes. Okay, so actually I can still feel the heat coming off of that, so I'm not putting my hand in there just yet. We'll get kneaded in a minute. You'll also want some cling film, plastic wrap, because once we've kneaded it all, we're going to wrap it and chill it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. It is warm, but it's not burning, it's just nice and warm. So we just want to knead that to get all that flour in there and combined. We can tip it out to the surface if we like to do a bit extra kneading, and if need be, just sprinkle some flour down there to get it non-sticky. Okay, now this is standard flour dough, you know, wheat flour. Some wrappers, depending on what you're making, and we're making Japanese, this is starting to get a bit sticky now, we're making Japanese gyoza, but there are sort of Chinese versions, and there is actually a version that uses sticky rice flour. We're not doing that. So, like I say, I'm going to knead this for 5 minutes. I'm going to wrap it in some cling film, and then we're just going to let it chill for at least half hour. Now, when it comes to making the wrappers, this quantity should make about 24 wrappers, or skins as they like to call them. You're going to want some corn flour when it comes, or potato starch, when it comes to rolling them out so they don't stick together. And the other thing that's important with this dough is that you keep it wrapped at all times, because we don't want it drying out. It's got to still be nice and pliable enough for us to roll our wrappers. Right, we're ready to roll some wrappers. Now, what you'd normally do, if you can do it with a rolling pin and do it by hand, is we would divide this into two, wrap up anything we're not working on, and then roll it out, you know, like into a long rectangle, and cut that up into 12 pieces, so that we end up overall with 24, and then roll each one into a ball, and then roll them out into a nice circle about 4 inches wide. Now, Gyoza wrappers commercially obviously aren't made that way, and they tend to be a bit thinner, and they're done because they're done on a roller and cut out, and that's how we're going to do it. We're going to cheat, and we're going to use a pasta roller, pasta machine. Now, like I said to you, we need to keep everything sort of covered and dry, but we're going to be flouring this with corn flour. Okay, so I've got some there. So all I'm going to do at this stage, that's a little bit sticky now, I'm just going to cut a portion off. That's going to get wrapped up again, and then I've got here a 4-inch cookie cutter. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to put the handle on it, and I bet, now I'm just going to flour the outside of that, and then I've got it on its widest setting, and I'm just going to roll that through, a bit like I was doing pasta, and then we're just going to gradually make it thinner, again, just like we were doing pasta. Now, thicker ones are a little bit easier to do your folds and your pleating and everything. But let's live dangerously. So, that's not quite 4 inches wide yet, I don't think. No. So I'm going to need to run this a few more times, and then I'm going to cut them out, flour them and lay them out on here. So I perhaps, even with that pasta roller, didn't roll these quite thin enough because I've got 16 out, and apparently that quantity should have made 24. I did do the last few a lot thinner, but that struck me as it was very difficult to obviously handle, and they start getting deforming very easily. But anyway, that's them there. And what we're going to do now is just cover them over and leave them until we're ready to fill them. So there you go. That's how you make your Gyoza wrappers.